At this precise, fleeting fraction of a second, you are far more than a singular biological entity staring at a screen. You are a living, breathing paradox of physics. You exist as a library of infinite variations, a symphony of simultaneous realities vibrating in the invisible architecture of the now. This is not a poetic metaphor designed to soothe your ego, nor is it abstract spiritual wishful thinking. This is the hard, undeniable reality of quantum superposition applied to the miracle of your existence. In the language of advanced mechanics, you are a wave of endless probability. Every conceivable version of your life, the one where you are shattered by grief, the one where you are healed and radiant, the one where you are financially destitute, and the one where you are the architect of a vast empire, are all occurring right now, hovering in a ghostly state of readiness within the field of potentiality. You are the ultimate quantum machine. You are talking evidence of the multiverse, functioning identically to the subatomic particles that build the cosmos. These particles do not choose a location until they are observed. Until then, they are everywhere at once. Similarly, you possess the dormant capacity to embody anyone you choose, the assured guide who leads with unwavering certainty. That version exists. The innovative visionary who changes the world. That version is accessible. The serene sage who has transcended all fear. That version is breathing within you right now. The prosperous architect of a destiny filled with abundance. They are all standing in the wings of your consciousness, waiting for the spotlight of your attention. However, despite this majestic array of options, a tragic pattern repeats itself with the rising sun. Within mere moments of your consciousness returning from the void of sleep, you commit a metaphysical error. You default. You slide back into the tight, suffocating skin of the you from yesterday. You instinctively reach for the heavy backpack of your past struggles, your known identity, and the secure but limiting narrative of who you think you are. You anticipate the same challenges, dread the same battles, and in doing so, you collapse the infinite wave of genius into a tiny, dense particle of mediocrity. Consider the absolute shock that rippled through the scientific community when quantum researchers first discovered that particles could exist in multiple states simultaneously. It shattered their understanding of reality. How could an electron be in two places at once? How could it manifest as both a fluid wave and a solid particle? Yet experiment after experiment confirmed this impossible truth. And here is the transformative insight that changes everything for you. You operate under these identical universal laws. You are not exempt from the physics of creation. You exist as pure, unadulterated potential until the moment of self-observation collapses you into a single, defined identity. The version of you currently processing these words is just one tiny fragment, one materialized possibility out of a billion, but the alternates are waiting. The version of you who is already experiencing the love you crave, the one who has released the heavy baggage that no longer serves their highest good, the one who embraced the unknown when your current self pulled back in fear. They are all real. They are expressions of your fundamental nature, accessible the moment you learn to tune your frequency. That persistent weight you feel in your chest, that gnawing intuition, that transformation is not just an option, but a necessity. That is not confusion. That is your soul waking up. It is your higher consciousness recognizing the glitch in the matrix, seeing the repetitive loop of collapsing into the same small self day after day, like a broken record playing a melody of limitation. You sense these other potentials beckoning you in your dreams, in the silence between thoughts, in those magical seconds between sleep and wakefulness where your programmed identity dissolves and you feel, briefly, that you could be anything. But then, the automatic program initiates. The sun breaches the horizon, your eyes register the light, and your feet connect with the cold floor. In that nanosecond, a tragedy of potential occurs. Instantly, without your permission, you default to the familiar configuration. You download the identical thought patterns, the identical emotional states, and the identical behavioral responses that defined you yesterday. This collapse happens so rapidly, so seamlessly, that you don't even realize you had a choice. It is a mechanism of pure automation. Your physical form, your muscles, your neurons, they all remember how to be the old you before your conscious mind even has a chance to come online. If this resonates with the deepest part of your being, recognize that this is the first step to freedom. By acknowledging this mechanism, you are creating an energetic entanglement with the frequency of transformation. Every single dawn, you undergo a quantum collapse without conscious recognition. In those initial fragments of awareness, before memory reinstates the timeline of your life, before your name and your burdens reassemble in your mind, you are pure potential. You are the quantum field itself, unbounded, undefined, and free. But then, a trigger occurs, a thought about work surfaces, a memory of a debt arises, responsibilities loom, an emotion floods your system, that familiar heaviness, that distinct frequency of anxiety or dread. In that instant, you transition from infinite possibility to a specific, limited identity. Physicists term this the collapse of the wave function. When a quantum system is observed, it transitions from all possibilities to one single actuality. And you, magnificent being, are the most complex quantum system in existence. You function simultaneously as the observer and the observed. You are witnessing yourself collapsing into form with each new day, essentially rebuilding the prison of your personality every morning. This process transcends mere mental activity. It is a biological event. Your entire physical system participates in this collapse. Your cellular memory retains the programming of yesterday. Your nervous system has encoded your emotional patterns like a hard drive stores data. Your heart has established a characteristic rhythm, perhaps one of apprehension, perhaps one of stress, and it seeks to return to that rhythm immediately. Before your first conscious thought forms, your body has already selected which version of you to manifest. It defaults to the familiar pattern, the secure configuration, even when that pattern generates pain and discomfort simply because it is known. Research into the neuroscience of change reveals a profound truth about this mechanism. By the time we reach the age of 35, approximately 95% of who we experience ourselves to be is nothing more than a set of memorized behaviors, emotional reactions, unconscious habits, and hardwired beliefs. We are not fully living. We are executing a program. We are not consciously choosing. We are automatically repeating. Each morning offers the divine potential to collapse into any expression of self, yet we default to yesterday's version because that is what our biological system recognizes. But here is the secret key. The moment preceding that collapse, that state of superposition where all potentials exist simultaneously, is where true power resides. That is the throne of creation. That is where choice emerges. That is where transformation becomes possible. Yet most of us rush through this sacred moment so rapidly that we never even recognize it existed. We default into our established identity before we even recognize that alternatives were on the menu. Researchers studying quantum mechanics discovered that observation doesn't merely reveal reality, it generates reality. The observer and the observed are not separate entities. They form one integrated system, co-creating each other in a dance of existence. When you observe yourself through the filter of your history, seeing yourself as the person who failed, the person who was hurt, the person who lacks, you collapse into that history. When you observe yourself through the lens of limitation, you solidify that limitation into physical fact. But what transformations might occur if your observation shifted? Your body doesn't simply remember your past, it actively reconstructs it every second. Every cell in your body functions as a microscopic quantum processor, storing not only biological information but also energetic patterns, emotional frequencies, and identity coding. After years of experiencing yourself consistently, feeling the same anger, the same sadness, the same unworthiness, your cellular structure becomes conditioned to specific biochemical signals. Fear generates a specific cocktail of hormones. Anxiety activates specific neurotransmitters. Doubt initiates particular biochemical cascades. Over time, your cells, these remarkable intelligent processes, develop a physical dependency on these chemical messengers. They literally crave the biochemistry of your established identity. They become addicts to your suffering. So when your conscious mind declares, "I desire change, I want to be happy," your trillion cells respond with a riot. They scream, "Provide what we recognize. Give us the cortisol. Give us the adrenaline." This explains why transformation feels so incredibly challenging. You are not merely changing a thought pattern, you are fighting a physiological war. You are requesting that your entire biological system undergo withdrawal from its familiar chemical environment. You are asking every cell to release its dependency on being who you've always been. And like any withdrawal process, discomfort arises. Your body responds with signals of distress, anxiety, agitation, and even panic. It is not because you are making a mistake, it is because you are finally breaking the cycle. Here is something truly revolutionary that isn't widely discussed in standard self-help circles. When quantum systems undergo change, they go through what physicists call quantum tunneling. This represents the ability for particles to pass through energy barriers that classical physics would deem impossible to traverse. Your consciousness has this identical capacity. When transformation seems impossible from your current perspective, quantum tunneling allows you to jump into a new state of being without necessarily walking the full linear path between states. This is why sometimes transformation can happen instantaneously rather than gradually, defying our linear understanding of time and effort. Science now demonstrates something remarkable about the relationship between mind and matter. Your cells don't merely respond to your thoughts, they become your thoughts. When you think identical thoughts repeatedly, your cells restructure themselves to facilitate thinking that thought again. Neural pathways strengthen like well-traveled highways. Synaptic connections multiply. Your brain physically reconfigures itself to make your established patterns more efficient. You become a biological monument to your habitual self. But here is where quantum superposition becomes your greatest ally. Just as particles exist in multiple states simultaneously, your cells possess the capacity to exist in multiple emotional states, multiple biochemical environments, and multiple realities concurrently. They are not permanently locked into singular patterns. They can learn new expressions. They can respond to new rhythms. They can become conditioned to joy as readily as they became conditioned to fear. The scientific term for this is neuroplasticity, but it is actually quantum mechanics at work in your biology. Each time you select a different thought, experience a different emotion, or take a different action, you are collapsing into a slightly different version of yourself. Do this once, and your established pattern reasserts itself like a stretched elastic band snapping back. But practice this repeatedly with intention and awareness, and something transformative occurs. Your cells begin anticipating the new pattern. They begin craving the new biochemistry of gratitude, of power, of peace. They begin reconfiguring themselves around your emerging identity. Beyond neuroplasticity, we now understand a process called quantum coherence occurring in biological systems, where particles within your cells can maintain synchronized wave functions. When you consistently maintain a new state of being, your entire body begins to achieve quantum coherence around this new state. It becomes increasingly easier to maintain as the individual cellular oscillators of your body synchronize to the new frequency. This is why transformation has a tipping point where suddenly it becomes easier to be the new you than to revert to the old patterns. Quantum physics has validated what ancient wisdom traditions have articulated for millennia. A singular, fixed reality doesn't exist. Infinite realities exist simultaneously, all coexisting, all equally valid, all awaiting consciousness to collapse them into experience. This isn't theoretical conjecture. This is scientific fact demonstrated in laboratories worldwide. In the renowned double-slit experiment, researchers directed electrons toward a barrier containing two openings. When unobserved, the electrons behaved as waves, passing through both openings simultaneously and creating an interference pattern. But when observed, they collapsed into particles, selecting one opening or the other. The implications are profound. Reality exists as potential until consciousness selects which version materializes. You live this experiment in every moment of your existence. Your life manifests as waves of potential until your observation collapses it into specific experience. The relationship you are currently in represents one collapsed potential. The work you perform represents another collapsed potential. The health you experience, the abundance you access or lack, the joy you feel or don't feel, all represent collapsed potentials drawn from an infinite field of possibility. String theory, one of the most fascinating frontiers of modern physics, pushes the boundaries of our understanding even further by proposing that there are at least 11 dimensions of reality. Most of these dimensions remain completely invisible to our standard physical senses, folded into the fabric of space in ways we cannot visually perceive. However, while your eyes may be limited to 3 dimensions, your consciousness is not. Consciousness is a navigator of these hidden realms. It has the capacity to sense alternative possibilities and perceive the gravitational pull of parallel realities where different versions of you are currently experiencing completely different existences. Have you ever experienced those strange, fleeting moments where you sensed that your life could suddenly diverge in a completely different direction? You stand at a metaphorical crossroads, and you can physically feel 2 different futures pulling at your attention simultaneously. That is not merely your imagination playing tricks on you. That is your consciousness actively perceiving the quantum field. You are sensing the different realities that are available to you, hovering in the ether, awaiting your selection of which one to collapse into your lived experience. This profound mechanism explains the haunting sensation many people carry, the feeling that they are living the wrong life. From a quantum perspective, this feeling is accurate. It means you have collapsed into a reality that is misaligned with your highest potential. You have unconsciously continued to select a version of yourself that was created through past conditioning, limited thinking, and old fear patterns, rather than the expansive version your soul knows is possible. You are wearing a suit of armor that was built for a war that ended years ago. But here is the liberating truth. Those alternative versions of you, the confident one, the successful one, the joyful one, have not ceased to exist. They continue to live in the field of potential. They remain fully accessible. They continue calling to you from the quantum field, broadcasting their signal, waiting for you to align your receiver with their frequency. Every single moment of your day contains a pause, a breath, a tiny space where all possibilities exist before one of them manifests. It is in this gap that your freedom lies. Quantum physicists refer to this state of infinite possibility as the superposition state. Ancient wisdom traditions, speaking the same truth through a different language, named it the gap between thoughts. Contemporary explorers of consciousness often call it the zero-point field. Whatever terminology you prefer to use, this space represents the most powerful position in all of existence because it is the birthplace of choice. It is the vacuum from which everything emerges. The tragedy of the modern human condition is that most of us rush through these moments without ever recognizing them. We awaken and immediately default to our familiar identity, bypassing the gap entirely. We encounter challenges, a difficult email, a rude comment, a delayed train, and we instantly collapse into our habitual responses. Someone triggers our reactivity, and we automatically collapse into programmed anger or defensiveness. We transition so rapidly from the realm of possibility to the realm of fixed actuality that the awareness of having a choice never even emerges. We are asleep at the wheel of our own lives. But imagine the power you would wield if you could expand that moment. What if you could extend that sacred space between stimulus and response, between the potential and the collapse? What if you could stand in the center of that silence and witness yourself in the act of selecting which version of yourself to become? This represents the true, unvarnished purpose of meditation. It is not about emptying the mind or achieving some blissed-out state of relaxation. It is about dwelling in that space of pure potential before the collapse occurs. This defines authentic presence. It is not just being here now. It is being aware of all the possibilities that exist within the now. This practice reveals what consciousness truly offers, not just the capacity for thought, but the godlike ability to choose which reality your thoughts will manifest. In this precise moment, as you process these words, you exist in superposition. Part of you remains skeptical, questioning if this is real. Part of you feels hopeful, sensing the truth. Part of you experiences fatigue, and part of you feels energized. Part of you yearns for transformation, while another part seeks security in the familiar. All these versions of you are authentic, and all of them are valid potentials, but in the very next moment, you will collapse into one of them. Which one will you select? This choice does not occur once a day. It happens thousands of times daily. Every single thought you think represents a collapse. Every emotion you entertain represents a collapse. Every word spoken, every action taken, every reaction experienced. All of these are micro moments where you transition from infinite potential into a specific hardened reality. And most frequently, without conscious intervention, you collapse into identical patterns, identical identities, and identical limited expressions of self. You are a masterpiece of repetition. If you sense this shift beginning, if you feel the stirrings of a desire to take control of this process, you are waking up. Your nervous system has mastered the art of collapsing you into your familiar identity. It happens so rapidly, so automatically, that awareness of choice never surfaces. Something occurs in your external world. A financial obligation arrives in the mail. Someone offers a critique of your work. An opportunity presents itself. And before conscious consideration can even take place, you have already collapsed into a predictable response. Your body automatically generates specific chemicals, tensions specific muscles, and triggers specific thought patterns. This automatic collapse mechanism is what creates the feeling of confinement. Your circumstances do not create your confinement. Your nervous system's addiction to collapsing into identical patterns creates it. You have practiced being yourself so extensively that your body executes the pattern without any conscious involvement required. You have attained mastery at being who you have always been, but mastery is a neutral tool. It can be redirected. The same nervous system that automatically collapses you into limitation can be trained to automatically collapse you into expansion. The same body conditioned to crave stress chemicals can learn to crave elevated emotional states. The same neural pathways firing in predictable sequences can rewire to fire in new, empowering configurations. This is where genuine transformation begins. It does not happen through increased effort, grit, or self-pressure, but through awareness of the moment preceding the collapse. The question is, when familiar emotions arise, can you pause? When habitual thoughts appear, can you question them? When your body prepares to react in programmed ways, can you choose differently? Initially, this feels nearly impossible. The gravitational pull of the familiar is overwhelming. Your cells demand their chemical requirements with the ferocity of a starving animal. Your neural pathways function like deeply carved riverbeds that thoughts naturally flow into. But each time you pause, each time you choose differently, you weaken the established patterns and strengthen new ones. You are literally reconstructing yourself at the quantum level. Consider this metaphor. Your established identity functions like a massive planet with a gravitational field exerting its own attraction force. It pulls everything into its influence. Every thought, every feeling, every experience gets pulled into the gravitational field of who you have always been. But consciousness exerts more power than gravity. Awareness wields more influence than automation. Conscious choice can escape even the strongest pull of established patterns. When you decide to stop collapsing into your previous identity, your physical system experiences shock. It has been generating identical biochemical formulas for years, perhaps decades. It pumps cortisol upon awakening when contemplating responsibilities, adrenaline midday when reviewing financial status, and a mixture of worry hormones before sleep. Your body knows this formula completely. It has become your biochemical signature, as unique to you as your genetic coding. Now suddenly, you are requesting your body stop this production. You are refusing to provide the stress chemicals it is dependent upon. You are withholding the familiar emotional states it craves, and like someone eliminating caffeine or sugar, your body protests violently. You might experience anxiety without apparent cause or irritability without a clear trigger. Your body literally experiences withdrawal from your established identity. This explains why many people abandon their transformation efforts. They interpret these uncomfortable sensations as indicators that something is wrong, thinking that returning to established patterns is necessary to feel normal again. This discomfort you feel when you initiate change is not a signal to retreat. It is actually the biological confirmation that transformation is progressing. Your established identity is dissolving at the cellular level, and the dissolution of the old self, even the parts that no longer serve your highest good, creates a temporary vacuum of stability. But here is the beautiful hidden aspect of this struggle. As your body releases its dependency on established chemical patterns, it becomes receptive to new ones. It clears the docking stations for a new kind of fuel. Gratitude generates a completely different hormonal cascade than fear. Joy creates neurotransmitters that are chemically distinct from anxiety. Love floods your system with neuropeptides that heal rather than corrode. Your cells, those brilliant quantum processors, can learn to crave these new chemicals just as intensely as they once craved the stress hormones. Most people navigate this journey blind, never taught about the phenomenon quantum biologists call cellular memory transmutation. This mechanism explains how your biology can accelerate its adaptation to new states when you provide it with conscious intention. You can literally speak to your body by directing your focused attention to the cells that are reeling from withdrawal and consciously telling them, "You are safe, we are evolving." You can significantly reduce the turbulence of the transition. Typically, this biological bridge spans a period of approximately 21 to 30 days. That is the duration required for the body to break its chemical addiction to the old emotional states and reset its baseline. During this phase, you exist in a state of quantum flux. You are technically neither your previous self nor your emerging self. You are in superposition, existing as pure potential, prepared to collapse into something unprecedented. This represents sacred time. This is when you are most powerful, most creative, and most capable of rewriting your genetic destiny. The mistake most make is rushing through this discomfort, trying to medicate it or distract themselves back into numbness. Do not attempt to make this comfortable. Allow yourself to exist in the uncertainty, in the static between the stations. This is where miracles materialize. This is where you discover the profound truth that you were never as solid as you perceived yourself to be. You were always fluid, always changeable, and always capable of collapsing into something magnificent. You are liquid light condensing into form, and you are finally taking control of the mold. In the world of quantum mechanics, there exists a principle that shook scientific understanding to its very foundation: the observer effect. Simply stated, the act of observation alters what is being observed. An electron does not occupy a definite location in space until a consciousness observes it. Until that moment, it is everywhere and nowhere. A particle does not select its state until consciousness collapses it into reality. This proves that the observer and the observed are not separate entities. They form one integrated feedback loop system, constantly creating each other. You function simultaneously as the observer and the observed in your own existence. How you observe yourself determines which version of you collapses into reality. This is the mechanism of your life. When you observe yourself through the filter of your past wounds, you inevitably collapse into a wounded reality. When you observe yourself through the lens of your inherent power, you collapse into an empowered reality. The observer aspect of your mind is the creator aspect of your being. Most people fail to comprehend the magnitude of this. You are never observing an objective, fixed reality. You are observing possibility and collapsing it into experience through the specific quality of your observation. Your consciousness is not a passive camera recording events. It is the active projector, selecting which potential becomes actual. Each time you look at your life, you are not merely seeing what exists. You are creating what exists through the act of seeing it. This explains why two people can walk through the exact same event and experience completely different realities. They are not just interpreting it differently, they are literally collapsing different quantum timelines through their observation. One person observes an obstacle, the other observes an opportunity. One perceives a burden, the other perceives a blessing. And both are correct, because both are creating their experience in real time. There is a concept in advanced theory called entanglement harvesting, which refers to the ability to create quantum connections between previously unrelated particles. In terms of your life, this means you can create new connections between aspects of your experience that were previously disconnected. When you consciously choose to see synchronicities and meaningful connections, you are engaging in this harvesting, strengthening the web of your new reality. This is why people who are waking up often report a dramatic increase in coincidences. They are not lucky. They are creating these entanglements through the quality of their focus. The quality of your consciousness determines the quality of your collapse. If your mind is clouded by past conditioning, you will collapse reality through that dirty filter. If your consciousness is clear and present, you will collapse reality from a space of pure potential. This is not positive thinking, this is quantum mechanics. Your consciousness is the lens through which infinite possibility is funneled into a singular experience. So the question emerges, demanding an answer. How are you observing yourself right now? Through which lens are you collapsing the wave of your life? Are you observing yourself as someone who is struggling or as someone who is evolving? Are you perceiving yourself as stuck or as someone in a deep state of transition? Are you collapsing into the narrative of who you have been or into the possibility of who you are becoming? If you are ready to observe differently, you must make a declaration to the universe. The simple act of deciding to be a new observer signals your quantum field that you are transitioning from unconscious reaction to conscious selection. Your previous identity does not require destruction or battle. It simply requires discontinued observation. When you stop observing yourself as that limited entity, when you stop collapsing into that specific identity, it naturally dissolves back into the quantum field, becoming just one of many possibilities rather than your only reality. This represents a transformation secret that remains largely undiscussed. You don't need to fight your old patterns. You don't need to defeat them. You simply need to stop selecting them, stop looking at them, stop collapsing them, begin observing something else. But what is this something else? It is not a fantasy version of yourself that requires construction from scratch. It is a version of you that already exists in the quantum field. Remember, in superposition, all possibilities exist simultaneously. The confident you, the abundant you, the peaceful you, they are already there, fully formed. They await your observation to materialize. Close your eyes and sense that different version. Not the one processing these words with doubt, but the one who is already transformed. Feel their energy. Feel their certainty. They do not exist in the future. They exist in a parallel now, a different collapse of the identical quantum potential. When you open your eyes, the choice awaits. Will you collapse back into the familiar or maintain the frequency of this new version? You can observe yourself as who you have always been, or observe yourself as who you are becoming. The quantum field responds equally to either choice, manifesting with mathematical precision whatever you select. This explains why pretending proves ineffective. You cannot fabricate a frequency or deceive the quantum field. You must actually shift your observation. You must actually transform your consciousness. It is not about verbal declarations or vision boards. It is about which version of yourself you are observing into existence in this precise moment. Each version of you vibrates at a unique frequency. The worried you resonates at one specific pitch. The confident you resonates at another. The scarcity-based self vibrates differently than the abundance-based self. These are not merely metaphors for poets. These represent measurable electromagnetic signatures that your body broadcasts into the quantum field every second of every day. Scientists have documented that your heart generates an electromagnetic field extending several feet beyond your physical body. This field carries information about your emotional state, your identity, and your consciousness. When you collapse into fear, your field broadcasts the signal of fear. When you collapse into love, your field broadcasts love. And the quantum field responds to these broadcasts by organizing reality to match them. This is why you can enter a room and immediately sense someone's energy without a word being spoken. Their electromagnetic field is interacting with yours, exchanging information at a quantum level. You are not merely sensing their mood, you are experiencing their collapsed reality, the version of themselves they have selected to observe into existence. Your frequency serves as your calling card to the universe. It announces who you are before you speak, before you act, and before you think. And the universe, operating through the laws of resonance and attraction, responds by bringing you experiences that match your frequency. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. More precisely, you attract what you are observing yourself to be. Changing your frequency isn't about forcing yourself to feel positive. It is about genuinely collapsing into a different version of yourself. When you truly observe yourself as abundant, your frequency shifts to abundance. When you genuinely collapse into confidence, your electromagnetic field broadcasts confidence. There is a principle in quantum field theory known as vacuum fluctuation, stating that even in seemingly empty space, particles and antiparticles are constantly appearing and disappearing. Similarly, in your life, new possibilities are constantly emerging from the quantum vacuum. bloom, even in spaces that seem devoid of opportunity. When you maintain a new frequency state consistently, you become able to capture these fluctuations, turning quantum possibilities into material realities in ways that would have previously seemed magical. The shift must be authentic, embodied, and lived at the cellular level. This explains why affirmations often prove completely ineffective for so many people. You can repeat, "I am abundant," thousands of times a day, but if you are observing yourself through a lens of scarcity, if your stomach is knotted with the anxiety of lack, your frequency remains unchanged. The quantum field does not respond to your words. It is deaf to your linguistic claims. It responds exclusively to your state. It does not react to what you say. It reacts to what you are. If you sense your frequency shifting even slightly as you engage with these concepts, acknowledge it. Let the vibration of truth announce your new electromagnetic signature to the universe. Now, we must move from theory to the practical application of consciously selecting which version of yourself to collapse into. This is not a single event that happens once. It is a practice, a skill, an art form developed through consistent application. Every master of consciousness, from ancient wisdom keepers to modern physicists, has understood this principle. Reality manifests in the moment of collapse, and you can learn to direct that collapse. Begin with the morning awakening. That precious moment when consciousness first returns is your point of entry. Before you open your eyes, before you allow the memory of your name and your problems to download, pause. Feel yourself existing in superposition, floating in pure potential. Remind yourself, I could be anyone. I could feel anything. All possibilities exist in this moment. Then, consciously select, not from your intellect, but from your entire being. Which version of yourself will you collapse into today? Feel it in your body. The confident version of you maintains a different posture, even while lying in bed. The peaceful version breathes differently, deeper and slower. The abundant version contains a different electrical charge in their cells. Do not intellectualize this. Feel into it, and then, with intention and laser-focused awareness, collapse into that version. Open your eyes as that person. Rise from the bed as that identity. Begin your day transmitting from that frequency. Throughout your day, countless opportunities for practice will present themselves. Every interaction, every challenge, and every moment of choice offers a chance to consciously collapse into your highest potential. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Which version of you responds? You receive unexpected news. Which identity do you collapse into? You face a familiar trigger. Who do you choose to become? The key lies in catching yourself in the split second before the automatic collapse occurs. That is your point of power. That is where you reclaim authority over your reality. Initially, you will miss these opportunities frequently. You will collapse into established patterns before you even recognize a choice existed. But with practice, you will develop speed. You will gain the skill to pause and the mastery to choose. One technique quantum therapists call pattern interruption can accelerate this process dramatically. Create a simple physical gesture, touching your heart center, snapping your fingers, or taking a specific breath pattern. Use this gesture only when consciously choosing a new state. It creates a physical anchor that interrupts the automatic collapse. When you feel the slide into old patterns, execute the gesture. It buys you the psychological space to choose differently. Over time, this gesture becomes a command switch for your nervous system. This practice transforms everything. It transitions you from a victim of circumstance to a conscious creator. It shifts you from being controlled by your patterns to authoring your experience. As mastery develops, something miraculous happens. Your default state begins to shift. The new version becomes easier to collapse into than the established one. However, let us acknowledge something critically important. Your established self will not surrender easily. It will fight for its survival. This resistance does not happen because your ego is negative or evil, but because it genuinely believes it is protecting you. That identity was formed during moments of pain in your past. It was created as armor against a world that caused you harm. It believes that by keeping you small, it is keeping you safe. So, when you begin collapsing into new, expansive versions of yourself, your established identity will resurface with vengeance. Typically, this happens when you are fatigued, stressed, or triggered. Suddenly, You will find yourself thinking the old thoughts, feeling the familiar bitterness, and collapsing into the old patterns. In that moment, you might conclude you have failed. You might believe nothing has changed, but that is incorrect. Each time you consciously choose a different collapse, even momentarily, you weaken the gravitational pull of your established identity. You are demonstrating to your nervous system that alternatives exist. You are teaching your cells that they can survive without their familiar stress chemicals. You are showing your consciousness that it possesses the power to choose. When established patterns return, and they will, meet them with compassion rather than resistance. Thank them for attempting to protect you. Acknowledge their concern, and then gently but firmly choose again. Collapse into something different. Do not do this through force, but through love. Remember, what you resist persists, but what you stop observing dissolves. Think of your established self as a frightened child fearing abandonment. If you fight it, it clings tighter. If you shame it, it intensifies. But if you love it, acknowledge it, and then gently redirect your attention to who you are becoming, it gradually releases its grip. It eventually recognizes it is safe to evolve. It understands that transformation is not death, it is growth. Some days will present greater challenges than others. Some moments, the gravitational pull of your history will feel overwhelming. Your body will demand its familiar chemicals. Your mind will insist on its familiar limitations. In these moments, remember that this is temporary. This represents your quantum system reorganizing itself. This is the chaos that must precede the new order. An important principle in quantum field healing is what scientists call phase transition. This is the moment when a system suddenly shifts from one state to another, like water turning into steam. Just before water boils, there is turbulence. The most difficult moments in your transformation process often indicate you are approaching a phase transition. The system, you, is gathering energy for a quantum leap. The greatest resistance happens right before the breakthrough. Understanding this can help you persist through the darkness, recognizing the chaos not as failure but as the sign of imminent birth. When you collapse into a new version of yourself, you do not merely change your personal reality. You create ripples in the quantum field that affect everything and everyone around you. This is not metaphorical, it is physics. Your electromagnetic field interacts with other fields, exchanging information, influencing probabilities, and shifting possibilities for those in your orbit. People will notice something different about you, even if they cannot articulate what has changed. Some will be drawn to your new frequency, attracted through resonance to the elevated version of you. Others might distance themselves, uncomfortable with the mirror your transformation holds up to their own stagnation. Both responses are perfect. Both represent aspects of the quantum reorganization happening around your shift. Your transformation gives others permission to transform. When you collapse into a higher version of yourself, you demonstrate possibility to others. You become living evidence that identity is not fixed, that reality is not solid, and that change is not just possible, but natural. You become a walking invitation for others to explore their own quantum potential, but the ripples extend far beyond those in your immediate environment. The quantum field operates non-locally, meaning changes in one part affect the whole. When you elevate your frequency, you contribute to the elevation of collective consciousness. When you collapse into love instead of fear, you make it easier for others to do the same. When you choose peace over anxiety, you add peace to the global field. Quantum physicists and biologists have begun studying what they call morphic resonance fields, information fields that seem to allow similar systems to communicate across space and time. When you stabilize a new frequency state that few humans have consistently accessed before, you are literally creating new morphic resonance pathways. You are blazing a trail in the ether. You make it easier for others to access similar states in the future. Your personal transformation literally changes what is possible for all humanity, creating new templates in the collective field. This explains why your transformation matters so deeply. It is not just about creating a better life for yourself, although that is important. It is about contributing to the evolution of consciousness itself. Each time you consciously collapse into a higher version of yourself, you are participating in the quantum evolution of our species. You are not just changing your story, you are changing the story. History contains countless individuals whose personal evolution catalyzed collective change. They didn't attempt to force the world to change, they changed themselves, and the world world reorganized around their new frequency. You possess that same power. Here is the ultimate revelation. You do not need to collapse into just one identity and remain there permanently. You can learn to live in conscious superposition, fluidly moving between different versions of yourself as circumstances require. This is not instability. This is quantum mastery. Sometimes circumstances call for collapsing into the warrior version of yourself. Sometimes the healer is required. Sometimes the creator, the leader, the mystic, or the child is needed. All these versions exist within you simultaneously. The key lies in learning to consciously select which one to collapse into based on what the moment requires, rather than automatically defaulting to your habitual personality. This represents true freedom. It is not being locked into one way of being, but accessing your full spectrum of possibility. It is living as a quantum being rather than a fixed personality. Masters of consciousness throughout history understood this principle. They could be fierce when fierceness served the highest good, and gentle when gentleness was needed. They were not inconsistent. They were quantum. They were fluid. Advanced quantum field navigators understand a concept called the quantum superfluid state. This is a condition where a substance loses all internal friction and gains extraordinary properties. Similarly, when you develop true quantum fluidity in your identity, you gain the extraordinary capacity to flow between states without the friction of identity crisis or cognitive dissonance. You become simultaneously completely stable in your core essence while completely fluid in your expression. But to achieve this, you must master the art of releasing. In superposition, all possibilities exist, but for one to manifest, others must be released. You cannot collapse into your new self while clinging to the old. You cannot embody your future while gripping your past. Letting go is the act of choosing. Your consciousness functions like a quantum processor that can only run one program at a time. While running the program of your established identity, you cannot run the program of your new one. Every moment you spend maintaining your established self requires energy. Every second you spend observing it into existence depletes your vitality. Letting go isn't merely liberating, it is energizing. It frees all the power you have been using to maintain your limitation. So, what are you prepared to release? What identity are you ready to stop observing into existence? The moment you genuinely release, the moment you stop collapsing into that old self, it dissolves back into the quantum field. It returns to being merely potential, just one of infinite possibilities. You are more powerful than you have been taught. You are more fluid than you have believed. You are more quantum than you have imagined. And now that you recognize this, now that you have felt this truth resonating in your cells, you can never fully return to the unconscious sleep. Your established self cannot survive this awareness because you have seen through the illusion of its solidity. The universe is already responding to your shift. Reality is reorganizing around your new frequency. The shift is complete. Your established self has dissolved. Welcome to your quantum life. If you're ready to expand your consciousness and step into your next quantum leap, subscribe now, leave a comment below, and share this message with someone ready to awaken.